The Arab Spring came with mighty winds of change, obliterating and/or weakening the reigns of autocrats throughout North Africa and the Middle East. Libya's Muammar Gadhafi was one of several Arab rulers crippled by revolutions that started on social media platforms and, in some cases, ended in public squares. Yet there's something that sets Gadhafi apart from the likes of Tunisia's Ben Ali, Egypt's Hosni Mubarak, or even Syria's Bashar al-Assad.
You know, he was slightly delusional to begin with, or in some accounts, extremely delusional to begin with.
Raj Desai is with the Brookings Institution. He says Gadhafi was much more of a performer than his Arab counterparts, seeing himself as a common man protector of the Libyan people while pushing for a more united Africa, with himself in a leading role.
He used to see himself as a kind of Simon Bolivar of Africa, a unifier of Africa to the extent that that type of unity would have a political manifestation. I think he probably saw himself as the first president of the United States of Africa.
But Desai says Gaddafi's eccentricities over the years made him and his ideas more or less unacceptable to most of the Arab and African leaders in the region. There were his endless rambling UN speeches, his insistence on living in his own Bedouin tent while visiting other countries, his choice of attire, his distrust of airplanes and elevators, and last but not least, his highly trained all-female troop of bodyguards.
Supposedly they're selected on the basis of virginity tests, and looks. The official explanation that his advisors will give you is that after facing a series of assassination attempts, he recruited these women because he thought that Arab and Muslim assassins would be less likely to shoot at women. On the other hand, the other explanation is it is basically tweaking tradition, because you don't see a lot of women in that position in that part of the world.
Just as troubling to many of his fellow Arab leaders was, says Desai, his alleged penchant for the use of terror tactics, such as the bombing of a civilian passenger aircraft over Lockerbie, Scotland, and the attempted assassination of the Saudi crown prince.
He's obviously had very bad relations with the Saudis. There is he tried to assassinate the crown prince. I think that's not going to have the Saudi royal family welcoming him to the country.
The idea that Gadhafi is an eccentric, delusional political artiste and alleged terrorist is widespread throughout the Western world, says Raj Desai. Desai says this is why it's been somewhat of a jolt for many Western notables when they've met personally with the Libyan strongman.
There are stories told by diplomats, both from the U.S. and from other countries, and most of their accounts tell of someone who's actually a fairly clear thinker, who can be very succinct, is very intelligent. The WikiLeaks cables reveal someone who is crazy like a fox, despite the fact that he comes across as someone who's above the fray, who doesn't really get involved in the day-to-day running of things, is actually heavily involved in running the economy and running the government, and is in fact something of a micromanager.
Desai says Gadhafi has ruled the country with total reliance on the extraordinary attention to his cult of personality. He says the extremes of his personality parallel the extreme domination he's had on all aspects of Libya's commerce and economy. Desai says where other autocrats in the region have neglected their country's non-oil-related institutions of commerce and industry, in Libya, these same institutions are nearly non-existent.
It is his green revolution that has shaped whatever institutions of state and government that still exist, but they are all completely a function of him. And after he goes, this makes the task of reform in Libya much more severe, much more challenging, because it's not just having an election or rebuilding some of the institutions of the state, as is the case in Egypt. It involves creating some of these things from scratch